If we had a buck for every Keanu Reeves movie franchise that redefined action in modern cinema, we'd have $2, which isn't much, but it's weird that it happened more than once. The Matrix is one of the most influential movies of the modern era. It's up there with Pulp Fiction, Seven, and Saving Private Ryan, except it didn't redefine storytelling, noir thrillers, or war films. It reshaped action and the use of firearms in surrealist cinema for decades to come. The movie does all of this with, at the time, never-before-seen groundbreaking stunts, special effects, and by constantly subverting the expectations we have of firearms. The gun collection in this movie is surprisingly tame when you look at it, but the way the guns are depicted absolutely maximizes their on-screen potential in the best way possible. It's time to enter the Matrix. Before we do though, did you know that the real world is also full of Smiths? And no, they won't hunt you down and try to kill you, but they will track you and sell private data to companies that are after it, which is why we partnered up with Aura, the sponsor of this video. Data brokers are eerily similar to the agents in the Matrix. You can't escape them. They can find out every single detail about you. Forget about your name and email addresses, they'll find out what you really think about your mother-in-law, how many books you read last year, and how close you are to disappearing and living the rest of your life in a cabin in the woods. Your friends and family aren't safe either because you're all connected online, and when they find the info they need, data brokers make a quick buck on it online. You can then expect a bunch of scams filling your inbox with phony offers and malware. Aura, however, can do something about it. It's Aura's job to find your leaked info, remove it, and put a lock on it to make sure it doesn't leak again. Aura is monitoring your online presence and your banking activity 24/7. You'll get notified immediately if someone is trying to buy property in your name or if someone's using your debit to get a new pair of shoes. A VPN to keep you hidden and a password manager aren't half bad either. While in case something does happen, Aura's fraud experts provide around-the-clock support for all their US-based customers, and they got you covered with Aura's $5 million identity theft insurance. There is also no other internet privacy service with all of these features within the same price range. We're not leaving ourselves vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Click the link in the description below and try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/shootingblanks. In those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal info from the internet, and your online presence will be ever safer for it. Now back to the video. The decision to make the Desert Eagle the sidearm of choice for the agents in the movie went down as one of the best character design decisions in movie history. The agents are supposed to be this ever-present, omnipotent, destructive force that virtually can't be stopped, and that's exactly what the Desert Eagle is, at least in modern media. The movie armorer John Bowring advised the Wachowskis not to give the agents the Desert Eagle, simply because the gun isn't a practical choice in real life and no professional would choose it over an HK-USP or a Glock. This is, by the way, the toned-down version of what he actually said, because if we said it, YouTube would ban this video. The Wachowskis were right in retrospect. This movie isn't exactly style over substance, but style is immensely important in the depiction of characters. This is why agents always wear dull suits, why Neo's Matrix apartment looks like a microcosm of a purposeless, late 20th century loner, and why Switch always wears white in the Matrix when everyone else wears black. The Desert Eagle is a fantastic choice in this regard. The unfortunate thing about this gun is that this is probably the only time it could be considered a fantastic choice, because no matter how hard The Matrix, Max Payne, or Call of Duty try to convince us that it's an omnipotent gun, it actually kinda sucks. This is, first of all, an absurdly big handgun. It's the handgun equivalent of 1940s German leadership thinking they're going to conquer the entire world just because they have big tanks. There are different Desert Eagle variations, but the one we see in the movie, the Mark 19, weighs an astonishing 4.4 pounds. For clarity, this means that the Desert Eagle is, in terms of weight, closer to an AR-15 than to an HK-USP or a Browning High Power. The gun we see in the movie is 10.75 inches long with a 6-inch barrel, but there's also a 4 inches longer variation with a 10-inch barrel, and boy does that look weird. No one really knows what's the exact purpose of the 10-inch variation, but it would probably be useful if you found yourself in bear country. Now, the question on everyone's lips is why the hell is this gun so monstrously big, right? Well, unlike the vast majority of modern handguns, which use short recoil action to chamber rounds, the Desert Eagle is a gas-operated system. This means that part of the gases released by the explosion is used to chamber the next round, and this mechanism is something we're very familiar with because it's used in more or less every modern assault rifle or carbine. The reason the designers opted for this is to allow the use of powerful cartridges. The Desert Eagle can be chambered for many different big cartridges, but it's most famously known for its use of 50 Action Express cartridges, which are powerful enough to rip a fist-sized hole in a human torso with a single shot. 50 AE rounds have a maximum range of 200 meters or 650 feet, which is about 2 times the effective range of other handguns. Although we, of course, know that this is virtually impossible in real life because nobody can aim a handgun, or in this case, a hand cannon, accurately at 650 feet. So the Deagle's biggest selling point is that it's insanely powerful, which puts it on the market that's usually been dominated by Magnum revolvers. However, that's pretty much all it has going for itself. Although it has a cult following in video games and movies, the Deagle is not a practical handgun in real life. First of all, it has the recoil of a wild moose in heat. Trying to keep this gun under control is like arm wrestling a green anaconda. You are not going to win. The best you can hope for is a draw. The gun is the definition of the word unwieldy. It's a fun gun to shoot once, especially if you never shot it before, but it's incredibly impractical for anything else. Home defense, actual military or law enforcement use, probably even hunting. This is very important for the movie, however, as the agents always shoot one-handed. This is a nod to the fact that they're not human and are in control of the simulation's laws of physics. Secondly, because of its weight, the Deagle is difficult to aim as it fatigues your arms fairly quickly. Thirdly, the 50 AE version can only fit 7 rounds in a magazine. 7 damn rounds! That's useless, especially in comparison to most other handguns nowadays with magazines that fit around 15 9mm rounds. Most shooters would choose 15 9mm rounds over 7 50 AE rounds in any practical scenario. In real life, only Polish and Portuguese special forces, the GROM and the GOE, actually have the Deagle in their armories, and keep in mind that they're not necessarily using them just because they have them. So the gun is good for one thing and one thing only: decorating, because it can blow a hole in a brick wall. Aside from that, however, it's so pointlessly bulky with comically strong recoil and so few rounds per magazine that it's senseless to use in a realistic shooting scenario. In spite of that, the gun has appeared in close to 1,000 movies, shows, and video games to date simply because it boasts a larger-than-life reputation. The agents' handling of their Desert Eagles is fine. In fact, it's more than fine. We're not going to be judging their gun handling because these guys are effectively gods in the Matrix. The standard rules of trigger discipline and gun handling don't apply to them because they simply do not make mistakes. Unlike normal humans, they can't trip and accidentally pull the trigger, and friendly fire isn't an option for them, unless it's intentional. That being said, there are 2 notable scenes that we'll take a look at. First of all, in this legendary scene, Neo is moving at an insane speed. 50 AE rounds travel at a speed of 1,542 feet or 470 meters per second, and since the distance between the agent and Neo is no more than 10 meters or 33 feet, Neo has about 0.02 seconds to react. That's literally faster than the blink of an eye. Then there's also this scene in which Agent Smith shoots Neo a total of 10 times, which is impossible since his mag can't hold more than 7 rounds. IMFDB interestingly notes that it's possible that the Matrix programmed the agent's guns to have infinite ammo, but that's honestly a cheap cop-out, because if that's the case, wouldn't our protagonists do the same? Mouse designs his own people and guns, why wouldn't he design a gun with infinite ammo? Or at least a gun with a 100-round magazine that somehow doesn't get in the way. We will be deducting points for this, but it should be noted that this is a sci-fi action flick, which shouldn't be taken as seriously as we're doing it. Trinity and Neo get armed to the teeth in the iconic Lots of Guns scene.
Guns. Lots of guns.
The pair insists on double-wielding everything. Trinity does it at the beginning of the movie, and they do the same when they try to save Morpheus from the agent-controlled building. Just like the agents, they're never seen reloading, but in their case, there is some logic to it. It's difficult to reload weapons when you're double-wielding, which is why we see Neo just drop his weapons after emptying them and pull something else out. Trinity primarily uses a Beretta 84FS Cheetah. Interestingly, this gun was chosen simply because Carrie-Anne Moss, who plays Trinity, has very small hands, and any other gun would look preposterous in her possession. The 84 Cheetah is 6.8 inches long with a 3.8-inch barrel, and for comparison, the 92 FS used by Neo is an 8.5-inch long gun with a 4.9-inch barrel. Speaking of the 92FS, this seems to be Neo's primary firearm despite him cycling through half a dozen other weapons throughout the movie, and there's one weird thing about it just towards the end. In this scene, Neo runs out of ammo after only firing 7 or 8 shots. It's a bit difficult to get the exact count because of all the cuts. The thing is, he never used this gun before and it should have 15 fresh rounds. This mistake is here on purpose to raise the tension of the moment, but it's completely inaccurate. Neo should be able to blow Smith's brain out. Also, this is why the Desert Eagle is inferior to most pistols in spite of being a more powerful handgun. Aside from their Berettas, the pair also loves micro Uzis. We are not going to comment on their unrealistic recoil handling. Similar to the agents, these guys can do whatever the hell they want and they manipulate laws of physics as they see fit. Neo pulls the same stunt 3 times, actually with a pair of MP5Ks and a pair of Scorpions. The SA VZ61 Scorpion is a weapon we rarely see in movies, but it's a really cool machine pistol, or submachine gun depending on who you ask, from former Czechoslovakia. The gun is an absolute icon of guerrilla warfare, having served during the Troubles, the post-Yugoslav wars, the Lebanese, and the first Liberian civil wars, and it's apparently alive and well today in Ukraine. The gun is also extremely popular with criminals because of its small profile and ease of use. It's normally chambered for the .32 ACP cartridge, although there are variants chambered for other calibers, and with 850 rounds per minute, it's good enough to ruin the day of a few security guards. Speaking of, it's worth pointing out that Trinity and Neo are killing actual people in this scene and in every other scene where they're fighting law enforcement. Agents are programs, yes, but everyone else represents the living consciousness of a person who's been enslaved and is currently in a state of deep sleep somewhere in the real world. When Neo and Trinity shoot them, they're killing innocent people. However, there's no way around them and they're necessary casualties. There are 3 minor mistakes regarding the Scorpion in the movie, and they all happen in this very short scene. First of all, that's way too many empty casings given how fast the Scorpion is firing. Secondly, those are all 5.56 casings, and the Scorpion fires 32 ACP rounds. Thirdly, the Scorpion's ejection port sends the casings up and right, not down. Also, how did none of these guys manage to land a single shot on Neo in this scene, which happens just before the Scorpion bit is lost on us? Keep in mind that Neo has not yet discovered his bullet dodging abilities at this time, which means that these guys have stormtrooper aiming. The most impressive custom-made weapons are Mouse's shotguns. These guns don't exist in real life. They were made for the movie, and even more specifically, for Mouse himself. Earlier in the movie, it's established that Mouse designed the Red Lady, showing a knack for high-level design within the Matrix, and these shotguns are likely another project of his. The aforementioned armorer for the movie, John Bowring, designed the shotguns based on the high-standard Model 10A and the 12-gauge Manville Model M12 machine gas projector. The HS Model 10A is a semi-auto bullpup shotgun and was used for the main body of Mouse's shotguns, while the M12 is a very old design of a projectile launcher used mostly for tear gas. The shotguns are automatic 12-gauge cylinder-based guns with a rate of fire of about 900 rounds per minute. Yes, that's faster than the Scorpion. Each cylinder can fit 25 shells. It's seemingly natural for everyone to dual-wield everything in this movie, and Mouse naturally double-wields these things. Of course, that would send him flying in real life, but remember that these guys can do whatever they want as long as they believe, or to be more precise, know they can. Despite having enough firepower to take down an entire elephant herd, Mouse manages to miss every single member of the SWAT team and gets killed in the process. A General Electric M134 minigun also makes an appearance, and it's the centerpiece of one of the movie's coolest scenes. Neo unleashes the old painless's rage on the agents guarding Morpheus from a Bell 212 helicopter. If he did this in real life, he'd most likely kill Morpheus because he can't see anything and he's trying his best to eyeball the agents, but once again, these guys are in control of everything up to the tiniest degree. The M134 is incredibly powerful, and in order to film this scene, they had to tone the minigun's rate of fire down to about 3,000 rounds per minute, which is half the minigun's maximum ROF. The same thing happened on the set of Predator. They toned down the rate of fire to 1,250 rounds per minute because the gun would otherwise be impossible to control. On that note, if you want a deep dive on the minigun, we recommend you check out that video. The Bell 212 helicopter we see is normally not an aircraft you'd mount the minigun on, mostly because it's not a military helicopter, but it is a member of the Huey family, and it's possible that the agents who brought the helicopter modified it to fit the minigun aboard. Those are all the really relevant firearms in the Matrix, and before we move on, we need to take a moment to just appreciate the insanely good style this movie has. In 2029, The Matrix turns 30 years old, and it still holds up. The movie was incredibly impactful when it came out, and it showed that there are other ways to make gunfights awesome. We appreciate the John Wick, Heat, and the Way of the Gun types of gunfights, which are all special in their own ways, but so is this incredibly stylized gun action. The slow-mo bullet time, the cool dark outfits, the shades, the stunts. The Matrix touched the absolute peak of stylized gunfights when it came out, and it remains on that peak to this very day. It's possible that's the reason the following two sequels kind of flopped. Although they had their story issues, the first movie was so groundbreaking in terms of fighting choreography that it had become impossible to top it. Either way, if we were giving out points for style, Matrix would get a 10 out of 10 grade and no movie comes even close. With that, we've come to the end of the movie and we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle here because this movie is impossible to rate for gun handling, realism, and accuracy. The agents as programs and Neo, Trinity, and everyone else from the real world are essentially omnipotent, and there's nothing they can't do in the Matrix. Their mind is the only limitation. This is why, for example, we can't deduct points for Neo cartwheeling his way to an M16 and using it effectively while cartwheeling. With that in mind, we're just going to ignore this category in this movie because it honestly makes no sense to apply real-life logic to a sci-fi flick about bending the rules of reality. When it comes to sheer firearm accuracy, however, there are a few things that have to be pointed out. For one, the Desert Eagles have seemingly infinite ammo, and Neo's 92 FS runs out of rounds after only half a magazine. The first is impossible, and the second is extremely unlikely because why would Neo bring a half-empty magazine to a gunfight when he has all the ammo he could wish for at his disposal? That scene with the Scorpion's casings is also pretty bad because there are too many of them. They're flying in the wrong direction, and most importantly, they're the wrong casings. However, movies like this are very difficult to rate because it's almost impossible to tell what's been inserted on purpose and what's a genuine mistake, so we're accepting the fact that we're possibly too harsh or that we're not being hard enough. It's also important to point out that The Matrix is the definition of style over substance, and we're saying that in the best way possible. This is style done right. On some level, why the hell should we care if that's too many casings or if Neo's Beretta runs out of ammo for no good reason? The point of those moments is to send a message, to paint a picture, not to serve as a carcass for a bunch of over-obsessive YouTubers to clutch their claws into. We still have a job to do, and we're giving The Matrix a 7 out of 10, but it's a 7 out of 10 with an asterisk because this is an honest-to-God 10 out of 10 movie in terms of overall quality, and we refuse to hear otherwise. Either way, The Matrix remains one of the greatest action sci-fi movies ever made. If only its sequels had followed the same formula, the world would be a better place. What did you think of the way The Matrix played with its guns? Remember that the special effects and bullet time were revolutionary at the time, and combining it with all the hand-to-hand combat really made the movie special when it first came out. What do you think about the Desert Eagle, and which movie do you want to see broken down next? Leave your answers in the comments below and make sure to like and subscribe for more videos.